John West, Paranormal Park Ranger in Echo Canyon. HQ Incident File Number 4, Echo Canyon, Grand Canyon National Park. Archaeological team partially missing. Recovered members report hearing thoughts that do not belong to them. Possible reptoid cryptid involvement. Requesting immediate investigation. Eternity. That's hard to even conceive of. One's entire existence is statistically non-existent to eternity, and that freaks most people out. It's why Alexander wanted to be great, for to be famous is to never die. But even the memory of Alexander will fade. Better to be a rock if you're going for real longevity, eras over epochs. The arches of arches, the reef of Capitol Reef, the badlands of the badlands, these stones have an incredibly long story to tell. Memories resound in the rock somehow, and I've been called in because a bad one has just woken up. Howdy, folks. John West, Paranormal Park Ranger, here on assignment at the North Rim. It's early November, and my wagon is humming down State Route 67, long, lonely, and golden with dying aspen leaves. I pass the shuttered visitor center and keep driving south, not to the overlook, but out the east service gate. I'm headed towards Lee's Ferry, where I'll meet up with my partner for the assignment. He and I have known each other for years, because I'm here more than any other park. As I descend into Marble Canyon, the Vermilion Cliffs to the west blaze in the morning sun. It's a desolate road for 6 or so miles, and then the river appears, wide and green. Lee's Ferry is situated at the confluence of the Colorado and Paria rivers, and it's there where most rafting trips through the canyon embark. I drive slowly past the small campground, I'm pretty sure it's empty, but you never know, and see my destination, a gravel boat ramp hugging the shoreline. A well-worn whitewater raft waits on the ramp, and standing beside it, arms crossed, is a lean figure in a river-worn ranger vest, my old friend, Canyon Ranger Jesse Redclay. His skin is sun-cracked, his long black braid tucked beneath a battered Stetson. Canyon Rangers are as experienced as they get, having to deal with ghosts, aliens, cryptids, you name it. The Grand Canyon's got it. Jesse nods without smiling. "Morning," I say groggily as I exit my wagon. "John," he says, "you look terrible." "I'm tired, Jesse," I tell him. "I just drove all the way from Glacier." "You'll have time to sleep in the raft," Jesse says. "We won't reach our target until tomorrow morning." "River closed?" I ask. "Shut her down yesterday," he says. "Algae blooms." "And it's 3 teams of archaeologists gone missing?" I ask. "That's right," he says. "Their guides were very experienced. I knew them all by name. It doesn't make sense they'd get lost like this. There's definitely something more at play. Here, come and look." I follow Jesse to his truck. In the passenger seat is a terrified young man struck with what looks like living rigor mortis. He's breathing, but frozen stiff. Petrified, huh? A lot of people think that's just an expression, but it really happens if people are scared enough. "Rock solid," Jesse confirms. "Found him bobbing in the river like a plank. I calmed him, but he'll probably still be out for another 3 or 4 days." "Are we just going to leave him here?" I ask. "I'll crack the window," Jesse assures me. "Ready for some rafting?" "Ready as I will be. Let's go." The raft is borne by the cold, deliberate force of the Colorado as the clouds drift slowly over the red cliffs rising on either side of the river. The low angle of the sun makes the canyon especially beautiful this time of year. I try to scan a battered topo map marked with faded ink coordinates from old Army surveys and ghost stories, but the light is so dreamy and I'm so exhausted I can barely focus. Up ahead, I watch Jesse steer with quiet precision, eyes always on the next bend. I must have fallen asleep because I wake up. The sky is pink through the gauzy kerchief draped over my face. "How far have we gone?" I ask Jesse. You've been asleep for nearly 9 hours, he answers. Slept right through Badger Rapid. I sit up and look around. The eastern wall of the canyon is shining orange with the light of the setting sun. The western wall is dark blue. Cool shadow is creeping across the river. Sorry, Jesse, I say. I must really have needed the sleep. Looks like you woke up just in time, Jesse says. For what? I wonder. Up ahead, standing at a sandy bend in the river, the faint glow of a Navajo spirit wearing the trappings of a guide is waving us down. Ya at eh, he calls out, his voice strong. Ya at eh, I answer. I know a little Navajo. He's my neighbor back home, and he taught me a few words. Ahote, my friend, it's been a while, Jesse says, steering the raft into a small backwater abutting the river. How have you been? To be honest, I am worried, Ahote answers. Who is your companion? John West, Paranormal Park Ranger, I say. Nice to meet you, Alote. It's Ahote, he says. I said Ahote, I lie. You said Alote, he says. I said your name, I insist. It's Ahote, he says. I said Ahote, I repeat. Ahote rolls his eyes. I have the worst luck with native spirits. Jesse, you had better be careful, he warns. There are strange things happening in Echo Canyon. Something has awoken, reports of bizarre noises and voices. Some even claim they've seen a monster. I fear it's the Serpent King. Who's the Serpent King? I ask. A monster born of blood ritual, Ahote explains. For you see, in the Second Age, a chieftain discovered a magic cave in Echo Canyon, one that had the power to record the words spoken within its crystal walls. The chieftain, hoping to preserve his own name and power forever, called forth a great evil to protect his discovery. But the incantation grew more powerful with each echo, and the monster became so terribly strong that it killed the wicked chieftain and caused a cave-in that trapped it forever. My people knew this. They warned outsiders not to wake it, but outsiders never listen. They pick and blast at our memories, our graves, and now they have freed the horrible beast of Echo Canyon. Yikes, I say. Yikes? What's with this guy? Ahote asks Jesse. He's tired, Jesse answers, frowning at me. Ahote hums disapprovingly. I seriously warn against going any further, Jesse. We have to, Jesse says stoically. I know he's torn between his heritage and his work. It's our job. I think you should listen to a guide who's been exploring this canyon for 1,200 years, Ahote huffs. Jesse, I'm disappointed. You ought to know better. We share blood. You haven't had blood for 1,200 years, Ahote, Jesse says as he paddles out of the still water and we begin to float down the river once more. I've got to protect everyone, not just my tribe. You're a fool, Jesse, Ahote calls, gesturing angrily. A fool! He trips and falls into the water. Funny thing to see happen to a ghost. Jesse and I have been on so many assignments together, there's almost nothing left for us to talk about. But I try to make conversation anyways. You ever hear about the 1909 Arizona Gazette article on G.E. Kincaid? I ask him as we're lounging around camp later that night. Of course I have, he answers. He's smoking a cigarette and I'm jealous. That's one of the canyon's most famous mysteries. Might as well ask if I've heard of soup. You know what really gets me? I ask, inhaling the second-hand smoke as deeply as I can. Kincaid was with the Smithsonian. He wasn't just some nut. He was on an official expedition. The article, in a legitimate newspaper, said they discovered statues of Isis and Osiris, hieroglyphics, mummies, everything. I know. I know you know, but don't you think it's interesting? As interesting as the UFOs I have to convince visitors they didn't see on a weekly basis, or the ghosts at the lodge that like to pants people, really, there's enough actual paranormal activity going on. I don't have time for the legends. Oh, heck, I sigh. Where's your sense of fun? He points at his brightly colored socks and asks, "Didn't you see the socks? But do you think the Crystal Cave and the Kincaid findings are connected?" I ask. "There's an extensive underground cave system here, so yes, they're probably connected," Jesse says. "Is that a pun?" I ask. "I'm trying to be fun," he answers. I roll my eyes and then roll my body over in my sleeping bag. "Night, Jesse," I say. "Like connected by tunnels," I hear him explain as I fall asleep. A few hours into the second day of our investigation, we veer off the main flow of the mighty Colorado, following a narrow, half-submerged inlet barely visible in the rock, and then fall briefly down a short waterfall into a side canyon that's hidden in the sandstone. The walls are sheer and close. A sense of dread and claustrophobia sets in as the raft slows and the river stops moving. "Smell that?" Jesse asks. I sure do. It's stink. Evil doesn't always smell like sulfur, sometimes it even smells like perfume, but this canyon reeks of classic rotten egg stink. "Stink!" I gag, clutching my face. An echo comes bouncing back softly, "Stink!" and then doubles again, louder than before. "Stink!" And then it begins to volley, "Stink! Stink! Stink!" Over and over and over, and so loudly and unceasingly that it feels like an assault, albeit a silly one. I want to scream, but fear it will echo just the same. "Ah, say!" Jesse calls at the top of his lungs. The canyon falls silent. "It heard you?" I mouth, my ears ringing. "I don't know," he mouths back with a shrug. "Maybe," I start to whisper. Suddenly, the tributary's snaking waters transform, solidifying into a giant, slithering serpent. It rises up from the riverbanks, and our raft is lifted on its back, high above the canyon floor. The river-green serpent turns its terrible head around to face us. A grotesque humanoid visage, horrible and twisted, with eye caps and slits where its nose should be. I look at Jesse, begging to scream, and he concedes it's time. We grab one another and holler as loud as we can. In that instant, the snake bursts into water and splashes back down into the riverbed. We're thrown from our raft, down a dark chasm where we tumble over one another until we come to rest in a dusty chamber. It takes a minute for our eyes to adjust to the dimness. "See any quick way out?" I ask Jesse. "Not right away, no," he answers. "You all right?" I check myself over. I ripped my shirt sleeve, but otherwise got lucky. "I'm fine," I say. "You?" I see a flame go up from his lighter, and he puts it to a cigarette. He's fine. "You think it's a good idea to smoke down here?" I ask. "It's never a good idea to smoke," he answers. "Look, what's that?" I turn to where his flashlight hits the wall. Incredible, the wall is covered in petroglyphs, but not just any petroglyphs, ones depicting a crowned, snake-headed figure, the same baddie that just threw us off his river, the Serpent King himself. "You know petroglyphs better than I do. Is this art honoring the thing or warning of it?" I ask Jesse. "It's a warning," he says. "People came and went from this place purposefully at some time in the past to remember the evil here. There must be an exit." "Well, if we follow your smoke," I say, pointing to where the stream from his cigarette was disappearing into a dark crevice, "we might just find it." "Smoking saves," Jesse deadpans. I'm the first into the tiny passageway that might be our way out. I hate spelunking. It gives me vertigo. "Hurry up," I hear Jesse say. "Geez, Jesse, don't need to be rude about it," I shoot back. "You're going to die in there," I hear him say, but it's not his voice, it's mine. "What the hell did you just say?" I ask, but I hear Jesse's voice coming out of my mouth. I shine my light in his face and his eyes are bulging. He knows something's not right. The thing about an old friend is you don't have to talk too much. We both understand the cave's playing tricks on us and that we need to get out as fast as possible. Where the passage is tightest, where I have to wiggle across a space maybe half an inch wider than my body, I hear Jesse's voice in my head, speaking my inner monologue. He wasn't saying anything crazy, just my thoughts were in Jesse's voice. This type of thing would drive weaker men mad, and I'm no Superman. I try to meditate, to think about nothing until we make it to a large, watery chamber where my thoughts are again my own. "You okay, buddy?" I holler at Jesse over the noise of the waterfall pouring down the far wall of the cave. My voice is my voice. Phew. He nods. I don't blame him for not wanting to talk. He shines his flashlight up a wash of slippery scree. Our journey out continues. We reach another chamber, one that sunlight is penetrating from above. We can't reach the sunny opening, it's way too high above us, but it's warmer here, and so we decide to rest and have something to eat. "You know, you might as well eat a candy bar for all the sugar that's in one of those things," Jesse says as I munch on an Edge bar. "Says American Spirit over there," I shoot back. "Probably shouldn't lecture me about health, Smokey the Boar. And anyways, they were out of candy bars." Jesse almost smiles. "I'm surprised we haven't seen Snakeface again," I say, unscrewing the top off my canteen. "We're headed his way, and he knows it," Jesse replies. "Surely we're destined for the Crystal Cave." "Any idea what we're going to do when we get there?" I ask. "I have some spells I could chant as a last resort, but I don't like to do that if I don't have to," Jesse says. "I feel like using magic is what got us into this mess in the first place." "Not one for magic, Jesse?" "Not in this life, no. It's like toying with the coding of our universe, to use a modern analogy. I've seen all the trouble magic can bring, and what good there is in this world, it doesn't need magic at all." "So, how are we going to beat this thing?" I ask. "With a little tech and ingenuity, I hope," Jesse answers. "You about ready, Candy Boy?" "Sugar rush, ready and willing, sir," I answer, standing up with a hyperactive salute. "All right, let me catacomb the place real quick," Jesse says as he takes a small device out of his backpack. "Why didn't you tell me you had a catacomber before?" I ask, bewildered. "This one's solar-powered," Jesse answers with a sigh. "Not one of HQ's best ideas." "No, subterranean solar is really just not feasible right now," I agree. As he fidgets with his machine, I notice a shoe print in the dust and then a small notebook near it in the shadows. "This looks pretty new," I say as I pick it up. I flip the pages. It's from the missing archaeologists. The last entry is from less than a week ago. "Looks like the dig team was here just before us," I say, showing Jesse the notebook. And I bet they kept going past that cave-in there," he replies, reading his catacomber. "It's recent. Just beyond the rock pile, the tunnel continues." "Then let's get to liftin'," I pronounce. It doesn't take long to clear the rubble. Once we do and we're moving again, strange whispers begin to sound from the darkness. "You hear that?" I ask Jesse. He puts his finger up to his lips, shushing me. I shush. We are climbing up out of a dip in the trail when our flashlights bounce back brightly from something shiny in the distance. What could it be? The whispers become louder, clearer, more defined as we approach the Cave of Echoes, surely, but why is it shining? It all makes sense when we enter into the cave, a massive chamber covered top to bottom in giant quartz crystals, the largest I've ever seen by far. Crystals so huge they jut up around us like Roman ruins. "Of course!" Jesse exclaims. I have no idea what he's talking about. Yeah, of course, I repeat anyways. Quartz is a piezoelectric crystal, he says, snapping his fingers. Of quartz it is. I play along, no idea where he's going. Meaning it naturally vibrates in response to sound and electric signals, Jesse says. Yeah-huh? I squawk. All the water flowing through the cave's cracks and crevices must generate energy that charges the crystals electrically, enabling them to record sound, Jesse postulates. Obviously, I say, it was not in fact obvious. Feeling insecure about my intelligence, I start to move deeper into the cave. It's humid, musty, and I trip over a body. There they are, I groan, casting my flashlight beam over the missing archaeologists, petrified all. Strange, there isn't any acoustic phenomenon occurring right now, Jesse notices. Makes me worried. As I continue to scan the cave with my flashlight, I spot petrified corpses from across time, Native Americans, cowboys, men in short shorts from the 1980s. The Serpent King has been loose for longer than we thought. Looks like old King Coil has been building his collection for centuries, I say to Jesse. Why do you think he's suddenly after more? I think Ahote was right, he answers. I think it was these archaeologists who dug a little too deep. Now things get weird again. The monster is unstoppable, I see Jesse say. We can't win. Only the voice doesn't sound like him, or me this time either. I think about saying the words, "It's happening again," but they come out in a whimpering woman's voice as, "My poor mother will never know what happened to me." It's like the echoes trapped in the crystal are coming out any way they can. Just as Jesse and I acknowledge what's happening, the Serpent King returns like a flash flood, slither crashing into the cave with incredible speed. He sneers at us as he tears through the labyrinth of crystals, his hisses echoing as the tortured lamentations of his human collection. Like I said before, the best thing about old friends is that you don't have to talk. Jesse and I know exactly what to do. He smashes a tremor stick into the ground, and I switch on my trusty Spectrola full blast. It starts to pick up the voices from the crystal, and they begin to fill the cave. Soon, the volume and the sonic pulses from the tremor stick are so intense that the ground begins to shake. "She's gonna blow!" I holler. I love hollering that. The Serpent King seethes as its cave collapses and gives us a horribly pitiful look when the voices the crystal had trapped for so long are allowed to finally dissipate. As they do, the petrified corpses littering the cave begin to fade with them. When the very incantations that called forth the beast and amplified his power long ago are finally freed from the crystal memory, the poor monster knows its time is through. In a last stab at revenge, it thrashes against the huge columns of crystal buttressing the chamber, causing the ceiling to start crashing to the floor. "They're waking up!" Jesse shouts, calling my attention to the reawakening archaeologists. "This way!" I beckon. One by one, the men and women, most of them, make it out of the collapsing chamber alive. Just as Jesse brings up the rear, the ceiling gives way completely, smashing the Serpent King flat, or at least trapping it again, until the next fools come along to set it free. The seismic activity has opened up a new exit, thank goodness, and we all escape Echo Canyon at last. Back along the banks of the Colorado, we plant the idea in the archaeologists' heads that it was all a hallucination caused by algae bloom, radio in a rescue, and then give the poor buggers an Irish goodbye. Our job ends at paranormal case closed. Jesse and I hike out of the canyon in silence. When we make it to the top, I look back over the world's most famous nothing, where I've had some of the wildest encounters of my career, knowing it won't be long until some other layer of eternity gives us trouble and I'll return. I pat Jesse on the back. He coughs. The Grand Canyon. What a hole. Until next time, don't go digging where you shouldn't, and John West, Paranormal Park Ranger, has got you covered.